Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Soul Goals Podcast. I'm Dawn, and I'm so glad you're joining me today. This podcast is dedicated to bringing people's stories to light and hearing their journeys of inspiration and self-growth. But it's also about connection and knowing that you are not alone. Each week, I get the chance to sit down and talk with an amazing soul, someone I've had the blessing of either meeting or following in my life. I am so grateful for my guests. Their openness and their vulnerability, it is unmatched as we share heartfelt conversations together about both their challenges and their triumphs. I hope that you can grab some inspiration and connection from my guests and their stories. I know I certainly have with each conversation. What an honor to sit with these brave souls. Everyone has a story, folks. And every story matters. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Soul Goals. My name is Dawn, and today I have a remarkable guest that has agreed to come on and tell her story. I have the awesome Makenzee Mason, hailing, by the way, originally from Ohio, correct?
Correct.
Hey, I didn't tell you this before we started recording. I'm from Ohio originally as well.
Really? What part?
I'm from Northwest Ohio, like the Toledo area, and you
Okay.
are the other side of the state.
I'm from like Columbus area, a little south of Columbus.
The Ohio State University
Yes.
area. Yes, I'm sure you've never heard that.
Never.
Well, Makenzee is no longer living in Ohio. She actually is in West Virginia, and she is a phenom on the basketball floor. This is her senior year playing collegiate basketball for Bethany College in Bethany, West Virginia. And as we're speaking right now, she's in playoff time. Like, this is kind of a hot and heavy time right now. So I am so thankful that you were able to carve out some time to talk today. I know that's hard, and I know we were talking also before we recorded, it gets so much more physical. It's the end of your season. There's a lot going on.
Yes.
Are you excited, or are you apprehensive, or how are you feeling about the end of your season?
A little excited, a little nervous. More excited because this is what everyone plays for, tournament time to chase a ring, throw in any scenario there, like bring home a trophy.
Yeah.
They all have big meanings to them, right?
Yes.
But also this is end of my career. I've been not hoping for it, but eventually like it does come, and I'm excited to see what the next step off the basketball court is as well.
Yeah. I think when you get to that point, because are you 20, 21 at this point?
21.
21. Yeah. I mean, your life is ahead of you, and you're going, oh, wow. Like, you see the finality of all the years that you put into your sport. And you're like, wow, it's definitely like life is now, the next door is opening,
Yeah.
and walking through that can be, all the emotions, all the things, I guess. Right. Yeah.
All of them.
Yeah.
It's I like to call it a whirlwind.
Yes. On any
Everything
given
just
day.
keeps spinning. Yes.
Right. Well, Makenzee has agreed to come on, like I said, and share her story. She's a standout high school athlete, multi-sport, by the way, I found out, not just
Yes.
basketball, right? So you could have gone collegiate soccer as well,
Yes.
which is awesome. Okay. So collegiate sport chose basketball, but through her high school career, multi-sport athlete. However, her high school athletic career was plagued by sexual assault at the hands of a trusted coach that she had over the course of a year and a half to 2 years. So as all of that information came out, as Makenzee was dealing with it, her abuser is now behind bars, and you did take the steps to actively make that happen. And I want to say the strength that it had to have taken as a teenage girl to bring that forward and have that conversation and let that stuff open up for others to know is extremely admirable. And here you are 4 or 5 years later, advocating for other people and telling your story. And I'm so, so thankful for that, because it is something, I know you talked about it online before. It's something that it happens a lot. And it's so unfortunate. And a lot of people's stories don't get told, and they just don't let it out. Yeah. So without further ado, my dear, 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 dear basketball phenom, Makenzee Mason. Thank you for being here.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we said you're a current senior on the Bethany College basketball team. Let's start back when you first picked up a basketball. Were you like little or do you remember that?
Yeah, I actually picked up a soccer ball first.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yes, my first ball was a soccer ball. There's pictures of me running around in a diaper and a t-shirt with a soccer ball in my hand.
Oh,
Um, my both my older siblings were soccer players, so I followed in their first footsteps first.
yeah.
Um, and then around middle school, 5th, 6th grade, I started playing on a, little kiddie travel basketball team. And I instantly fell in love.
Oh, that's great.
I think it was one of those things where it was like challenging and hard and new. Soccer came pretty natural to me,
Yeah.
but basketball, it was a challenge.
Okay.
And I think that's what drew me to it the most.
Yeah. Yeah. What was the most challenging thing for you? If you look back, like,
Dribbling with my left hand.
because are you right-handed?
Yes.
Yeah, 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 that ambidextrous situation. I don't know. I've tried that with a basketball. Yeah,
Yeah.
no. Yeah. Right.
But
Yeah.
yeah, ever since I picked it up in 5th, 6th grade, then in middle school, I started playing for the school because our school did have a middle school basketball team.
Okay.
And then it just kind of kept rolling from there. I
Mm.
started playing in summer leagues and I would dribble around my neighborhood with basketballs and like to stay in shape. I would make obstacle courses down in our basement
Oh.
and like would teach myself how to dribble and like I'd like dribble under sticks and
Oh, that's amazing.
yeah.
So at a very young age, you were dedicated to, like, this challenge.
Yes.
Oh, it's awesome. So
Mhm.
when did you know this? I'm gonna jump ahead just a little bit. When did you know you
Mhm.
wanted to play basketball in college?
Honestly, I started getting recruited my junior summer of high school.
Okay.
And then from then I was like, yeah, I think I'm gonna go play basketball. But I was actually on my way to a soccer tournament game my senior year when I called. Now my head coach is Michaela Lopez, but at the time it was Brian Sampson.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey, I'm ready. Like, I'm gonna come play for you. And
Oh
he
my
was
gosh.
like, don't you have a tournament game today? I was like, yeah, I'm on the bus, but I just wanted to let you know, like, I'm ready.
I'm just gonna go back. You said you were headed to a soccer tournament, and you're
Yeah.
calling your future collegiate basketball coach, "Hey."
Yep.
Oh, man, that's awesome. So that had to have been tell me about that feeling because and we're gonna go back into your story, your high school story, but tell me, how did you feel making that phone call after everything that had transpired for you over the course of the previous year and a half or so?
I felt relieved.
Yeah,
A lot of my recruiting process, I knew I didn't want to stay in state for school.
yeah,
And I've been very independent most of my life. Like I would go to my room and I would draw or I would play with Barbies or
yeah,
so I was very independent. So I knew like I wanted to go out of state. So I was almost relieved when I made the call.
yeah,
One, it's a very hard process to get recruited because you're going on all these visits and you have to have all these almost adult conversations and you're 17, 16, 17, 18.
right.
So then when you finally make the call, it's like, okay, a weight is lifted. I can just go be an athlete. I
Yeah,
don't have to worry about injuries because at the D3 level, it's technically academic scholarships. It's
right,
not athletic, so you can't get them pulled. So
right.
then I was like, I can just go play freely. I don't this is one less thing off my plate.
Yeah, yeah. That makes complete sense.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Let's go back into your high school career. So you were playing multiple sports, knowing ultimately that kind of basketball was that challenge, and
Mhm.
that's really where you wanted to go. Um, it started in you said 2018, and it happened over the course until 2020.
Yes.
You were actively groomed
Mhm.
by a coach that worked with you, basketball coach, correct?
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about how that process started if you're looking back at it now, because as a 15, 16-year-old girl, I mean, I have two daughters. I don't know that that would be something that would ever be on the forefront of their mind to know that that was occurring.
Yes. So actually it goes back a little farther than me,
Okay.
which I think is again, it's still all crazy to me. Like, even when I tell my story and I'm like, yeah, I mean, it was before me that my family was being groomed. Um, a
My
very good family friend coached my older sister in basketball. So this is how long he's been in the school district, right? Very good family friend of my mom. My dad, he's kind of quiet, so
Mhm.
he kind of like stayed off to the side. But again, knew him for since I was little, before I even started playing basketball.
Yeah.
There's my sister when she was playing in her tournament games. There's a picture of me running around in a pink North Face and balloons, and I was just, the
Yeah.
excited little sister. So this is how long I've known him. I
He's
was that
been
little
a part of your
girl running
family.
around. Hmm.
Yeah, he's been a part of your family unit,
Yep.
basically.
And then of
Wow.
course knew my older brother too. Older brother was an athlete as well.
Okay.
Um, so there's this long line of, hey, like we trust him. My
Mhm.
oldest played for him. Um, and then you always kind of heard stories, right?
Yeah.
Of, well, there was people speculated that this was happening back when my sister was in high school and in the school district that he was before this.
Mhm.
And then when you're in the middle of it, it doesn't seem like you're being groomed.
Yeah.
Like it seems like a coach player dynamic, a mentor young child that's just kind of looking for a direction, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Um, there was a lot of times that it was simply just, hey, you're a very good basketball player. You need to get in the gym, get extra work, and you're going to be great, right?
Yeah.
Because every athlete wants to hear you're going to
Yeah.
be great someday.
Yeah, by their coach, especially, and
Yes.
it's somebody that you know so intimately that
Mhm.
you've gone your family has ties with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember in 8th grade, there was 3 of us that he took to a high school summer tournament,
Mhm.
and he was like, "You guys are gonna be, like, very good players coming in freshman year, like, come with my team to this," I think Finley Shootout
Okay.
is what they called it, and again, at the time, you're like, "Well, like, okay, like,
Yeah.
yeah, I wanna go play with the high schoolers,"
Yeah, yeah.
and then sitting back now and looking at these things, it's like, should an 8th grader really be going to a high school tournament?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
It
So
throws up a questionable flag for sure.
yes.
Yeah.
So at the time, like, again, like, never would I have thought, like, oh, like, these little compliments or side comments or, "Hey, like, you look like you've been getting in the weight room, like, you look good." Like,
Mhm.
you
Mhm.
don't think about it until, you know, you get older and you start reading other people's stories, and
Yeah.
I'm in psychology, so then I start learning about these habits and how these people portray themselves, and I'm like, wait a second.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I always knew it was wrong, and then I was like, oh, this is why I'm acting the way I'm acting,
Okay.
into a little bit of my bad habits that I picked up.
Sure, sure. And this stuff was happening while you were playing the sport as well?
Mhm. Yes, he was my coach, but he was also the athletic director too.
Oh
So
gosh. So there was no one to really go to at that point?
no.
Yeah. Tell me about how you came out with your story and who you came
Mhm.
to first.
So I actually was in college. It was a very weird day on campus, if I
Mhm.
do say, when they first came and interviewed me. So a few months before that, I had emailed Ohio Department of Education back because they originally did a interview in 2020.
Uh-huh.
And of course, like I sat there and was like, I'm not sure what you guys are talking about. Like, I didn't want to be in trouble. It was my senior year. So
Like they were interviewing you during your
yes,
senior year of high school regarding your coach?
yes.
Oh my gosh.
Hmm.
So there was enough history
Yes,
with this gentleman that there was a trail and they were
yes.
I understand. Okay.
And then the school also interviewed me in
Okay.
2020, and they basically they didn't make me out to be like, this is all your fault, but it kind of was, listen, stay away,
Yeah.
like go graduate, like let's I don't want to hear anything else about this.
Oh, wow.
So again, not very victim safe. in that
Right.
scenario. But
Right.
I also was like, okay, like I got it. Like I just want to graduate and get out of here.
Yeah, you're a 17-year-old, you're a senior
Mhm.
in your senior year.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then I come to college, fast forward 2 years, and I am like, okay, I'm ready. Like, I'm going to email the lady from ODE and
Mhm.
just be like, I have some information that you guys might need for a previous investigation that happened in 2020.
Right.
Um, and then the very next day after that email, the Lancaster Police Department was calling me and they're like, we need to interview you.
Oh gosh.
And I was like, okay, well, that came fast. Like,
That's the
I
next
was like,
day. Yeah,
yeah,
so this is not a joke. There
yeah,
is nothing, they're not messing around.
right.
Yeah.
And again, like I was thankful for it because even at the time I sent the email, like I still had mixed feelings about
Right.
it. I was like, okay, like I'm ready, but I know like all I don't say backlash I'm gonna get, but I know all the publicity that it's gonna get. So then I was like, okay, like this is real.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so then Lancaster Police Department, the detectives were like, we need to get down to interview you. And I said, okay. They're like, is there a police department close? And I was like, well, I don't
Like, I
know.
know. I don't know. I don't know.
Like, I'm
Yeah.
just a college student, like
Right.
going on about my business. And they're like, okay, well, we'll come to campus.
Mhm.
And I was very appreciative of that
Sure,
because,
sure.
again, there was a lot of times that through the process, like I did have to drive all the way back to the Columbus area.
Mhm.
And again, like it uprooted my life. Like
Yeah.
I was a basketball player. I'm a full-time college student. I work on campus. So then now throwing in this investigation, I was back and forth 2.5 hours. There were some mornings I'd get up at 6 a.m. to go to a prosecutor meeting and then drive back after that to get back on campus for practice.
Oh my god, Mackenzie.
Yeah.
And you're how
So
old? 19 years old? 18, 19
night
years old?
night 19.
So, I think it's interesting to me that it took so long for you to feel safe.
Mhm.
And I shouldn't say interesting, it makes me sad to think about that because it's not something that is people will talk about. Yeah.
Yeah. That was a big part of why I did it.
Yeah.
Um, because again, like I'm currently doing my senior project on trauma and athletics.
Mhm.
And so I'm looking at a lot of research from other people, and it's amazing to me what social capital in a community can do.
Oh, right.
Um, and I never really realized it, but
Mhm.
you have this man that is a winning coach. He's an
Mhm.
athletic director.
Mhm.
He's very familiar in the community. You know, his kids are in the community, his
Mhm.
family's in the community. At what point do you or did people expect me to stop it at 15, 16, 17 years old?
Right.
And I think that
Because
was what I heard a lot of. Well, it's
ah,
been years.
but it's not about the story as much as it's about feeling safe to let
Mhm.
that out. I think that's the biggest takeaway right here. It's just it if you would have felt more compelled that there was that net, that support, and it
Mhm.
wasn't going to be a potential backlash for you as a 15, 16, 17-year-old high school student with this person in the role that he was in.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And even then, like, you hear all the time, like, about stories that people do come forward and they have to switch school districts. They have to uproot their lives that they've known for 15, 16 years.
Yeah.
It's just, it's very hard and it's very hard on communities. And I know that,
Right.
but we do not support victims very well.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, it's the mentality. I think there absolutely has to be two sides to be looked at here. You know, it can't be lopsided in that capacity at all, because then the support for people being able to say this is this is what's happening and being comfortable and being able to say that, you know?
Yeah.
And meanwhile, if we go back into that high school time frame, you said you had developed some bad habits. You were
Mhm.
developing coping skills and coping mechanisms to
Mhm.
deal with something that you did not feel you could speak out about. Tell me about your you weren't even able to talk to your parents about it.
Mm-mm.
Yeah. Oh, that breaks my heart because and it wasn't because of your parents being your parents, it's just the situation as a whole. And as a teenage girl, I mean, I can believe that with the proper grooming and what this gentleman was doing and the connection to your family, that there was probably a lot of things said about, you know, hey, it's all good. Don't worry
Yeah.
about it. This is between you and I.
Yep, a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even when my senior year, when the investigations happened, he still had enough access to me in the school system when the investigation started that he met me outside and said, "Listen, like there's an investigation going on. Like I'm not saying you need to lie for me, but I have a family and like I can't go to jail. Like I'm gonna kill myself if that comes down to it." Like that's how
Whoa.
much access he had to me, that he was telling me that the investigation was happening.
Wait, this is your abuser,
Mhm,
and you're a 17 18-year-old high school senior. Oh, I'm so sorry.
mhm.
Man, I am so sorry. What were what were some of the ways that you got through that time as a senior?
Um, COVID also hit.
Yeah,
So,
right.
yes.
Ugh,
So, I worked out a lot and probably to the point it was harmful for me.
okay.
But I was working out in the morning, at night, getting outside,
Yeah,
um, which in hindsight was probably one of the better coping mechanisms I picked up. But
sure.
I also picked up a really bad drinking habit.
Okay.
COVID did not help,
Mhm.
because again, they didn't really know what to do. And again, it's no fault, like no one really saw it coming.
Yeah, yeah.
But we didn't really have assignments. We had like a here, check in, like you're graduating. It was about it.
Yeah, because
Um,
that was when I mean, they shut your school district down, didn't they?
yep.
Yeah, so you didn't
Mhm.
really get you didn't get your full senior year in
Yeah.
that traditional way.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So
So
I would drink all night and then I would wake up whenever and work out, and then I'd work out before and then I'd just go right back to drinking. And I think that coping mechanism is one to get drawn into very easily
yeah,
because it numbs everything that's going on.
right.
Um, and then for a while there's no noise, right? Like you don't have voices in your head, like all these mistakes that have been happening, no one's been protecting you. Um,
Mhm.
but COVID for me really, like it was a blessing in disguise. Like it
Okay.
got me out of the school system.
Yeah.
Even though like technology, like he still had access to me via, well, he had made a fake Snapchat account.
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
So he still had access, but again, he was still living with his now ex-wife.
Yeah,
Um, so it was like very touch and go. Like he didn't have the everyday of, oh, I'll see her walking the hallway and like
right.
be able to say something to her.
So that yeah, like you said, that was a blessing in disguise for
Yeah.
you in that circumstance. Yeah.
Hmm.
But then if you couple all of that you had been holding inside for the last year, year and a half, 2 years, however your
Hmm.
timeline, and then you put COVID on top and you're taken partway through your school year, you're taken out
Hmm.
and yeah,
Yeah. My freshman college year was, it was rough.
yeah. Were you still in habits that you had to work through the coping
Yeah. Um,
mechanisms then?
it kind of just rolled into my freshman year because again, like we had some in-person classes, but some
Yeah,
of them like were, you just go on Mondays and then the rest of the days you're in your room.
yeah,
So again, like it kind of, now this is not the blessing in disguise, right? Like
right.
I could continue drinking every night and then I would just wake up, do Zoom class, and again, I don't know how many people actually listen to Zoom class.
Yeah.
And then I'd just go to basketball, and it was like a never-ending cycle. but my body got so used to it and the alcohol that very few people could tell the cycle I was in
Mhm. I think
because it
that's
was just
interesting.
normal.
Right. It was your normal.
Yeah.
And I think that's really interesting because when I speak to victims of different scenarios like this, it's that high functioning
Mhm,
place that they have to go to just to survive,
mhm.
just to survive. What do you feel where rather was your lowest point for you during all of this?
Yeah, so I was a very like, Imma go walk when I drink,
Mhm.
which was probably not smart, and again, like, I'm a freshman, so I know the area, but probably not as good as I should.
Right.
Um, but my athletic trainer actually found me in the woods, passed out, because we have trails here, and not just, like, right inside the trail, like, I was in the trails, and that was, like, kinda my wake-up call. I got into
Mhm.
counseling shortly after that,
Yeah.
even though, like, I always say, like, she had to drag me to counseling, not
Yeah.
really, but I was like, "Are you gonna come sit in here with me? Because I don't like this lady. I've never met her.
Yeah.
I don't like her."
Yeah.
I was not one to open up, but it was the bits and pieces that I was throwing my athletic trainer of like, "I don't wanna go home,
Mhm.
I'm drinking a lot."
Yeah.
Uh, I lost about 20 pounds my freshman year.
Which that's a big deal as an athlete.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and I was only probably 135, 140 anyway.
Oh, wow.
So I was down to like 115, 120.
Ugh.
So they saw the signs, and
Right.
I'll forever be grateful that I chose Bethany because again, like my support system that I found here has been incredible.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, she actually found me in the woods,
Yeah.
and I don't ask much about that day,
Mhm.
um, but I would assume I was in very bad shape.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a piece that we're just going to set over here and just understand that it happened to get you
Mhm.
to the help that you needed and
Yeah.
that, um, yeah, that the angel trainer was right there with you,
Mhm.
watching out for you. Were any of your high school coaches aware until that point about what you had been going through as a high school student? Did anybody know?
Um, I don't want to say they knew. There was
Maybe they
always
suspected.
yes, there was always suspicions, and there was always the rumor mill, and I I know some people had their speculations.
Okay. Yeah. But there was enough foresight on their part to be able to step in and say, hey, we know something else is happening.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they got you into counseling. You're a
Mhm.
freshman. Tell me, and you said kicking and screaming. I
Yeah.
understand. Yeah. Then they're done that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. When did you finally get to a point where you feel like you could trust and feel like this is I'm able to open up about what's going on because this was all before you were contacted and that
Mhm.
you actually let your story out. You were still holding it,
Mhm.
all the pieces.
Yeah, so I was in counseling for about a year before I finally came out with my story, but
Wow.
and I would still say through counseling, there was moments that I was like, "Yeah, we're gonna do this. Like, Imma dig in, like, here's some gory, horrible details and work through that." And our school counselor was great.
Yeah.
Um, and then shortly after I come out with my story, I do get into a trauma counselor that
Okay.
specializes in trauma. Um, she's great. We're like besties now.
Oh, good. Good.
There's still days where she was like, "You're not feeling," and I was like, "Yeah, yeah, I know," but
Oh, wow.
she's like, "Here, this is you. This is an anger iceberg, and then there's all these emotions down here, but
Yeah.
you just categorize them as anger." So, but she's great.
Yeah.
I try to open up. There's still days where I'm like, "Yeah,
Not
I'm
ready.
not sure today is the day,"
Yeah.
but
And it's probably a pretty fine line for you to walk
mhm,
as an athlete because there's a big part that's like, I have to unload this piece and I have to
mhm,
get to the next healthy version of myself, which is always layers of that you're going to experience as you go through your healing, as we all do as we grow. But understanding when it's safe to do it for you based on what your obligations and responsibilities are, I think is a big part. And then not negating the fact that you're having a feeling about it,
Mhm.
you know?
Yeah, I I love to just not feel. Even still to this day, I'm like, we'll deal with that one later.
Yeah.
But I've gotten better about it and like knowing like, okay, I'm angry today. Like, let's not take it out on everyone around me. Like,
Well, that's
let's bring it
great.
in.
Mhm.
But yeah, I used to be very angry and everyone could tell I was very angry.
Yeah.
Um, but I think learning and, growing and counseling, and I've gotten better at, seeing the signs of like,
Yeah.
okay, that just triggered me a little bit. Like I'm gonna take a step back. I have a lot better coping mechanisms
For sure.
now.
Yeah.
But
And when you were in high school, was that anger a big thing? Was that
yes.
something for you? Yeah.
Which is I think why I was such a good soccer player.
Okay.
On the
Okay.
on the
You're
soccer
like,
field, you could get away with a lot.
oh,
So
yeah.
then I would just, let it all out.
Yeah. Yeah. I've heard other athletes talk about that too. And that whole capacity of using their sport as their release, basically.
Mhm.
Yeah. Tell me how you felt about basketball at a certain point, because I know I read at one point it was, as much as it's your saving grace, there were points for you where it was not.
Yes. So basketball has always been a love-hate relationship for me.
Okay.
Especially since high school. As much as I loved being on the court, I also knew what came with being on the court.
Yeah.
And that was years of grooming and abuse and not even sexual abuse, but emotional abuse because here's this person telling me like you're a great basketball player, like you're gonna be a star, like you gotta keep working. And then I'd go to practice and it was like a flip of a switch. It
Oh,
was like I could never do anything right. Like I can't dribble, I can't shoot. Like
yeah.
I was always the one getting yelled at. Um, so it was very much emotional abuse too.
Right.
And then that leading to college, it was almost like I was trying to be perfect. And
Mm,
if I wasn't perfect, then like my whole day was shot.
yeah.
Like nothing would matter at that point. And again, like any basketball coach, basketball is a game of mistakes.
Right.
So trying to be perfect, but also understanding that basketball is a game of mistakes, I was in this cycle of I'm gonna go to practice and I'm gonna be mad, and then I'm gonna go to next practice mad, and then I'm
Mm,
not gonna have a good practice.
mhm.
Um, and then as much as I love being in the gym with my team, I would go in, at night or to get shots up on my own because then it was quiet,
Okay.
right? Then it could just be me and basketball. It
Okay.
was not about, a coach or a team or making a shot. Like it was just a quiet gym.
Yeah.
Um, so I did have moments where it was a place for me to cope and to be who I was. And then I also have, and still to this day, I said have moments where I'm like, why did I ever do this to myself? Like, why
Yeah.
did I play college basketball for 4 years?
Yeah.
Because there's been days where it's just, again, like you go practice and I'm just mad at everything. I'm mad at the basketball. I'm mad at the court. Like I'm mad at the hoops, and nothing can go right.
Right.
Um, so I think this year finding that balance of I know there's going to be days where I'm mad, but
Yeah.
still enjoying the moments that I get.
Yeah. And I love the expression that you said about I think it's really interesting because it's two sides. It's that anger, it's that
Mhm,
when you're in that
mhm,
practice, angry at the ball, angry at the court, angry at the
mhm.
shot, angry at what's happening around you. But then
Right.
when you can go quiet and be one on one by yourself, it's almost like it brings you back to a baseline.
Mhm,
Yeah. That's interesting too. I think that because and I know I also read you talk about, and this is such a big thing, and any trauma survivor will be able to attest
mhm.
to it, that the busier you stay, the less you have to
Yes.
and address it. And that in itself is a coping mechanism for a lot of us, right?
Yes.
So I mean, I feel like if I look at like a snapshot in my head about you in the gym by yourself shooting baskets, I mean, that's just you
Mhm.
moving, but doing a mindful kind of movement through your
Mhm.
stuff. And I think that, man, that's a gift because you were able to, and maybe it's a super blessing that was able to kind of pull you out of that trauma for a little
Mhm.
bit to be able to see what your sport is really all about. And thank you
Mhm.
for being so transparent about your feelings about did I do the right thing playing basketball for 4 years? Because
Mhm.
it's hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, let's go back to when you were addressed by the prosecutor and you were giving statements.
Mhm.
What was the time period before your abuser was prosecuted and sent to jail?
Yeah, so this one brings up a lot of emotions because I was interviewed on a Tuesday,
Okay.
and it was not until the following Tuesday that he was arrested.
Oh.
So he was still allowed to be around children for a week when these were the, again, at the point, allegations that they were investigating.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was hard.
Right.
Um, again, I it's not that he stole stuff. It the They were investigating a statement from a child from your school district that said, "I've been being abused,"
Mhm.
and then you let him stay in the school district for a week.
Yeah. A week is a very long time.
Yes.
Yeah.
And work a football game Friday night.
Oh.
Yeah.
Like his life didn't change.
No. So that was the most frustrating part, I think,
Right.
of the beginning.
Right.
Um, I was very pale when they interviewed me. They were like, "If you ever need a break, just let me know." And I was like, "I might pass out." Um,
Oh.
but I think it was very freeing from the first interview.
Mhm.
It was like I have all these stories and all these nights that I could never tell anyone about.
Yeah.
And then it was about 2.5 hours, and like I gave them everything I could remember.
Yeah.
And I think that was a big part in the investigation too of like I knew specific dates, and like
Yeah.
I knew specifically where and where his house was. Because I think a lot of cases they come down to he said, she said, and there's a lack of evidence, and a lot of
Yes.
people get off
Yeah.
on this lack of evidence.
Mhm.
So I knew how important it was to be as accurate and like give as many dates as I could
Right.
and give as many locations as I could. Um, and I had been journaling
Okay.
for my counselor.
Yeah.
So I had to give all my journals to them too, which were also dated.
Yeah.
Um, so I think that helped as well. But yeah, I love telling people that when I was going through the interview process, I was about to pass out. I was about to throw up, like, I was
Yeah.
pale. Because again, like, it's not easy, and I never want to portray it as if someone should jump into it if they're not
Mhm.
ready,
Yeah.
right? Um, and, like, I've heard a lot of people's stories when mine came out of people just DMing me on Instagram or messaging me on Facebook, like, I have a similar story, and I'm like, "If you feel comfortable, you can talk to me, like, I'm here, but
Right.
I don't want you to see my strength as in you also have to be strong. I'm being strong for both of us."
Yeah.
Um, so I try to reiterate that as much as possible. Like, if you are not ready, don't feel like you have to come out with your story.
Right.
Like, if you need to tell me, I'm here. Like, I will listen. But that's very important that I tell people that I'm like, it is hard. Like, I was pale, I was sick, I was eating mints left and right, just trying to like
Keep your
keep
stomach
myself
warm.
calm.
Yeah.
Um, I went through probably a box of tissues.
Yeah.
It was
Well,
I was shaking. I'm sure my heart rate was elevated.
yeah. Well, you had to give so many specifics.
Mhm.
And I know that opening up that box had to have been very, very challenging, specifically because you had been holding on to it for so terribly long.
And
Yeah.
I think that I don't know how I held on to it for so long because, again, like, your family, like, you don't want your family to know these gory details, and, like, ultimately, that's what opening the box was.
Exposing your family.
Mhm.
Family, I say.
Yeah.
Yeah. Were there other people that had come forward prior to you regarding him?
Um, there were some people that had messaged me on Instagram and said that they had tried to make reports or they tried
Mm.
to tell people and they basically were shut down. So
Oh,
kind of like I was in a sense of, hey, you're graduating in a few months. Let's let's
let's just
let's
let
just
this
get
go.
to graduation.
Oh, Mackenzie. I'm so sorry. I just feel I just go back again what I said earlier, like the strength that it took for you to make that decision to make that phone call or to send that email and
Mhm.
say, "Hey, I have some information that I'd like to share," and opening up that box. Man, that's huge. That's huge. And I want to tell everybody that your abuser is he was prosecuted. He is in
Yes.
jail currently, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. What is that situation for him in terms of his time behind bars?
He got 4.5 years.
Mhm.
Um, which also is kind of a sore subject because
Yeah.
they could have I always forget the words, but basically they could have stacked the sentences.
Okay.
So for each count, he could have got 4.5 years. So he could have got up to I think 18. Um,
And he just got the
but
count.
yeah, they let him serve him. I think concurrently maybe is the word.
Okay.
So they all get stacked into one. So he
Yeah.
got 4.5 years,
How
which
but that's a whole other we could go down
yeah.
that rabbit hole all day long. Yeah. How tell me about seeing him when you were like when you were with the prosecution, when all of that was happening.
Yeah, so the only time that I actually saw him was the final court date.
Okay.
Um, I didn't go to any of like the sentencing hearing or the bond hearing or any of that.
Yeah.
I actually think those were on Zoom.
Yeah.
Um, it was empowering, I think is the
Okay.
word I'm gonna go with. Um, again, from the moment I walked into the courtroom, I pale.
Yeah.
Mints, tissues. Um, I was holding so many people's hands, just trying to stay calm.
Yeah.
But I did give a victim statement, which I don't really like calling them victim statements because like I like the word survivors.
Yeah.
Um,
I understand.
but that is what they call them in the courtroom. And even Misty was my victim advocate, and she was like, "You can call whatever you want to call it, girl." I was
Yeah.
like, "Perfect, sounds
Yeah.
great." But she was standing up there next to me, and she's like, "If at any point, you need to take a step and just collect yourself, or you need me to read it,
Yeah.
like I am here for you." And
Mhm.
I was like, "No, like I'm gonna get through this. Like this one's for me."
Yeah.
Um, and honestly, I don't think I made eye contact with him once.
Yeah.
I looked at the judge when I was reading it, and I was looking down at the paper and trying to keep the tears from running down my face.
Sure.
But yeah, in the courtroom, I looked at my people mostly.
Yeah.
Um, the detectives that worked my case, some of them were in the room. Clearly, the prosecutors were in the room,
Yeah.
and they all did great work. Um, again, there were some things where I'm like, this don't make a whole lot of sense, but for the most, they did great work.
Yeah.
They were there for me. They were very victim oriented. Um, and then I think the only time I probably looked at him was when they put the handcuffs on him.
Oh, wow. Talk about a moment.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And
How
everything went quiet. Like there was there
yeah.
was chatter, but I was like almost a little black too. Like like when a movie's over and like the screen starts to get black. Like that's kind of how I was feeling. Like
Yeah.
everything around me was black and it was just him
Yeah.
getting handcuffed.
How soon did you feel safe after that happened?
Um, Honestly, I would probably say I didn't feel safe until I came back to school.
Okay.
Um, I feel safe in my hometown now, but
Hmm.
I think there's still just that bad aura in the air
Yes.
with my hometown.
Yeah.
Um, and again, for like, I love going to see my family. I love spending time with my family. Um, but yeah, I feel like there'll always be that little bit of bad aura in the air.
Hmm.
But then you also like coming back and forth and being in town, there's just, you never really know who's on your side and who's not on your side. So,
Right.
like, I'm still to this day very careful about, like, if I go out, like, it's usually with both my parents. Like,
Right.
I don't really, like, go out to any of the bars in town. Like,
Hmm.
I kind of, when I'm home to see my family. And if we go out to eat, it's with them. Like, I don't really run around by myself.
Yeah. That makes me sad too because it's your hometown and
Hmm.
you should feel secure in your space. But I completely understand why you wouldn't. And anyone listening to this would understand that from your words for sure. So you still feel like there's yeah, you talk a lot about backlash because was
Hmm.
your town is small too, right?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what was some of the things that were coming at you? I mean, were people saying stuff to your family? Were they saying stuff to you specifically?
I think what helped in my scenario was I was the last kid to go through the school system.
Ah,
So
right.
my family, they all work in the Columbus area. So
Mhm.
it's not like we weren't out running around in town.
Okay.
So there was never really a moment where someone had a chance to say anything. I
Okay.
will say, like in church, there a lot of people were like, "Hey, tell Mackenzie that I'm really sorry. Like I'm here for
Yeah.
So there was a lot of good. It was honestly mostly online stuff,
Yeah.
which it was very hard. There were moments where my trainer, who's like my second mom now, is like, "Give me your phone, like just
Okay.
take a break from it. Like
Let's
you do
yeah.
not need to read everything."
Yeah.
Um, so again, like a lot of the stuff that you see with every case of she knew what she was doing, like she was old enough to know. Um, there were people saying it was my fault that I wanted it and I went after him and he was a married man with a family and yeah. You can just it's like textbook, what people
Right.
say.
Right.
Um so yeah, there were definitely moments where I definitely needed someone to take my phone and
Yeah.
get out of the cycle of reading what people anonymously put on a social media platform.
And there you said it anonymously too.
Yes.
Yeah. So that says a lot. You're not willing to put your face and your name out there behind your statement,
Yes.
but you were.
Yes.
See the difference. Yeah. It's the
Yeah.
strong versus the not so strong, I'm just
Hmm.
gonna say.
Yeah.
Yeah. Golly, I'm just so proud of you. It's a really, really hard thing. And now I wanna tell everybody that your major is you have a psychology major?
Yes. I actually passed my psychology comps in the winter. So we do comprehensive exams that are 9 hours long,
Okay.
8 written, and 1 hour of they say an oral test, but it's mostly like a hey, this is what you missed. Like, can we talk through it?
Yeah.
So I did pass that one in the winter.
Okay.
So I will 100% graduate with a psychology degree with a human service emphasis, and then
Okay.
I will take my sports medicine comp in the spring
Okay.
in like 2 months.
That's yeah, like, that's
Yeah.
happening, basically, yeah.
Yeah.
What is your because I think it's too interesting that you were, like, kicking and screaming to the
Mhm.
counselor initially, and you're like, I don't open up, I don't share that
Yeah.
stuff," and this is something that you're probably gonna end up doing to help other people, right?
Yes. I am looking at a few master's programs in clinical mental health counseling
That's
to
great.
further my education.
Where do you, like, wanna be in 5, 10 years? Like, what's your ultimate picture of yourself in that position?
Yeah, I kind of go back and forth. Dog mom is really up there on the list. Don't get me wrong.
You just got a dog, did you? Did I see that?
I did a
Puppy?
puppy. She's 2 months old and she's coming into her personality.
Love it.
Um, I go back and forth. I'd really love to be like a travel speaker,
Mhm.
and just advocate for people.
Yeah.
But again, like I also know like you got to make money to survive and like, have a house and have a car.
Right.
So I also could see me being in the private counseling field.
Right.
I kind of go back and forth, it's kind of going to depend on where my education takes me and, you
Yeah.
know, the economy and all that fun stuff.
Right.
And
Lots of other
yes,
things. Do you want to stay in the West Virginia area where you're at now, or are you open to going wherever?
I'm kind of open to going wherever. I'm looking at a grad school in North Carolina and
Yeah.
then Montana.
Oh my gosh.
So very opposites.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, either of them is such an interesting departure from
Mhm.
Ohio. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm in the Nashville area. And when I left Ohio, I was like 19 when I left Ohio as well. Boy, like it's way different.
Yes.
Way different.
I've
Wow.
always been told, like, get out and travel, see the world. Like, there's just so many opportunities. And I think coming to college out of state also helped me realize that. I was like, wow, like, this is new. And then being here for 4 years, I'm like, okay, like, what else is out there? Right.
Yes. Yeah.
So,
It expands your horizons and it
mhm,
shows you, I think travel teaches you so much about life and about
mhm,
yourself in your life.
mhm.
And all the things, yeah. I
Yeah.
wanna go back to a quote that you said, and I'm gonna have to look down here to read it, so I make sure I say it. You said this is a phrase that you have kind of clung to.
Mhm,
A very important person in your life gave you this, that it told you that you are the storm. And so I'm gonna
mhm.
read it because I think it's just so beneficial. "The devil whispered in my ear, 'You are not strong enough to withstand the storm.' I whispered in the devil's ear, 'I am the storm.'" Yeah.
Yes.
Tell me about that phrase and what that means for you.
Yeah. So recently, I never really grew up in church, right?
Mhm.
Um, in the recent years, I've got baptized. I actually got my family to get back in church too.
That's great.
Um, and I think it's been very important to me that, I find a higher power. And again, like I'm open, anyone, like whatever your higher power is, like I think it's just important to me to find a higher power that's grounding.
Right.
Um, so then I also got told this quote my freshman year in college, and I was like, "Yeah, yeah, this is great."
Yeah.
And I didn't really quite understand what it meant at first. Um, and then I kept getting told this quote,
Mhm.
and then the investigation started, and here this quote was
So
like,
that was
"I am."
before, like,
Mhm.
you were told this quote before the investigation.
Yes,
So no one really knew
yeah,
when oh, what
yeah,
a like, wow, what a mic drop
yeah.
moment right there.
Um,
Yeah.
so then the investigation starts happening, and I'm like, I am the storm. Okay. Like, I'm starting to grasp what this is meaning. Right.
Yeah.
Um, so then for me, on the day of the investigation, campus was crazy. Like, we had someone die of a heart attack on campus. Our
Oh.
library caught on fire.
Oh,
And I was like, okay, here I am. I'm the storm. Like, I'm doing this investigation. Campus is crazy. I was
wow.
like, this is the storm. Like, this is the sign. This is the storm. Like, this is what is happening right now. I'm causing this storm, right?
Yeah.
Um, so for me, clinging on to those 4 words, "I am the storm," has been so empowering and
Yeah.
so grounding, right? Um, and then throw in like I'm getting back in church and I'm, trying to live right now, right? Um, and here I am, like, every time I see a rainbow or every time, like, I see clouds and I'm just like, I'm in awe. And
Yeah.
I'm like, this is life. Like, life is great.
Right.
And no matter what storm passes, the sun's always going to come back out. The sky's always going to clear and there's going to be another path and there's going to be another storm. And it's just life.
Yeah. And it's learning how to manage that and move through
Hmm.
it. Wow. And your circumstances have been so so huge, so big
Hmm.
for you to have to learn that at yeah, less than 21 years old.
Yes.
Yeah, man. Mackenzie, you're delightful and you're
Thank
a
you.
survivor. You're not a victim. That's the
Mm-mm.
last thing I would call you. You're a survivor. And I am so, like, it's going to make me cry. I am so, so, so proud of you. And
Thank
I'm
you.
so thankful for you sharing your story because it's so empowering for people to hear what it is, vulnerably what you went through, and for you to share that so intimately and the details of what you had to get to and the maturity with which you're sharing it is a whole other sidebar. We could go down that rabbit hole too, because it's beautiful. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I really appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, all honesty right there for sure. Yeah. Um, so now I'm going to totally switch gears on you because you're getting ready. They're going to wipe my tear. Getting ready for your playoffs. And so when we air this, your playoffs will hopefully I'm going to cross all the fingers, all the toes, all the arms, all the things that when we release this, I can post a picture of, you guys competing in the finals and it
Mhm.
like being a big deal and
Yeah.
getting your rings and your trophies and all the
Yeah.
things. So, and if not, you're the storm.
Yes.
Totally. Totally. Um, I want to end with some rapid fire questions to kind of lighten the mood so people can see another fun side of your personality. Are you good with that?
I'm ready.
Okay. All right. I got about 4 or 5 of them. We're just going to throw them out here. Okay. What is your favorite month and why?
It's April, and because I was born in April.
Oh my gosh. Wait. When? April what?
The 5th.
Oh my God. I'm April 11th.
Okay.
One of my kids is April 3rd.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yes. So we are Aries. Let's
Yes,
go
absolutely. I'm
all the
like the
way.
definition of an
Yeah. Like,
Aries.
what is your strongest Aries trait, if you will? I'll tell you what mine is here.
Probably the fiery attitude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Fiery attitude and have my family could attest to this. Have a little bit of an impatient streak. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Me too.
Oh, I love that. Okay. Well, happy early April birthday. Yes. Let's
Thank
go. All
you.
right. Question number 2. What is your hidden talent?
I'm secretly very artistic.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
What do you like to do art wise?
Um, it kind of depends. I like to paint, but I also like to make things. So like love 3D puzzles. I love like putting together flower arrangements.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm secretly artistic. I'm actually in art class right now too.
Oh,
So,
fun.
senior year.
I know you're looking for things to fill your schedule because all your core stuff is done. Like, what the
Yep.
psychology stuff is
Yep.
without the hard part is, whew,
Yep.
of your schooling anyway is like, okay,
Yeah.
all right, I got through that one.
Yeah.
I am the storm. Yes, amen. All right, number 3. This will be a good one. What time do you usually wake up in the morning? Probably gonna be different every day.
Yeah, I've been on a strict 7:30 schedule,
Okay.
especially since getting the puppy.
Oh,
We
is your
feed
dog
we
like,
feed
I got to go
we
out?
yes, he or she gets out at 5:30 to go to the bathroom, like clockwork, and then we go back to bed for a little bit, and then we get up at 7:30 so I can feed her, and then I go get breakfast, and then I start my
Gotcha.
day.
What's your schedule looking like right now, like in your playoff time? And or maybe I should say just kind of in general, like do you have conditioning? Do you have practice? What's your travel schedule?
Yeah, so we actually played at home on Tuesday, so we didn't really have to travel, but we had a walkthrough at 11 to 12, and then today we'll have a walkthrough 11 to 12, and then we leave around 3.
Yeah, so this is a travel day for you.
Yeah,
That's a lot going on.
into the city, Pittsburgh.
Oh my gosh,
Mhm.
let's go. That's really great. I don't know that a lot of people understand unless you're in college athletics, like what that looks like. It's
Yeah.
so intriguing. My older daughter plays, my younger daughter's recruited to play. So it's always interesting to look at that dynamic and I like have no idea what she's doing from day to day.
Yeah.
And when I hear from her, it's like, oh, I you were up at 6 a.m. doing lift? Like I'm drinking my 3rd cup of coffee or just trying to
It's
barely wake
funny.
up.
My parents are like that too because we all have Apple Watches and the fitness is like all linked.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, Mackenzie's already done with 500 calories today.
She must have had workouts this morning. That's funny. Oh, I love it. Oh, all right. Question number 4. What is most likely to distract you when you're working, say, on a school project or homework of some sort?
I'm gonna say TikTok and conspiracy theories.
Oh, okay. Okay. Elaborate on the I mean, I can understand TikTok.
Yes.
Like, let's just like pick up the phone and be like,
Yeah.
I've gone down that one too. Yeah.
Yes. Conspiracy theories. I'm not like a huge conspiracy theorist. Like I'm not like, oh yeah, I'm gonna post about, the moon. Like
Yeah.
it's resting now, supposedly.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like to see some wild opinions about like anything, honestly, like Taylor Swift and Travis Kelsey. That's been a huge
Yeah.
talk recently. And I love to see people's stories about, oh, this is actually like a simulation and they're not actually together. And
Yeah.
so
Well,
not like me personally, like, oh yeah, here's a conspiracy theory, like I want to talk about, but I like to see others' opinions about things.
Well, I think that makes you probably a pretty well-rounded person
Mhm.
because I think if you stick specifically with people that have the same opinion as you do and you don't think outside the box and listen to other people's perspectives, you don't really grow as a person and you don't
Right.
learn that, hey, well, that's an interesting point. I've never thought
Yeah.
about it like that. And you may shift your thoughts. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Very, very open, well-rounded person. There you go. All right. Last question, and then I'll let you go to get ready to walk through and
Yes.
travel today. Yeah. What motivates you the most?
My family. And I throw my friends into that category too, because I have a lot of friends here at Bethany that have turned into family. But I think it's just the idea about like they gave up so much for me and like they gave up their time and their money that like I want to make them proud in return.
Yeah. And they were with you through this whole
Mhm.
process. Yeah. Yeah. Oh. Oh. Mackenzie, I'm so, so, so happy that you are in a good place, that
Mhm.
you are getting ready to graduate and moving to the next season, if you will,
Yes.
of your life, whatever that encounters. I will be looking forward to following your where you end up for grad school
Yes.
and how well
Thank
that looks
you.
for you. I think you're going to be magnificent in whatever you do. And I know that a lot of times we look at like our traumas as being what was a blessing for our trauma. But if I had to sit here and just say, like listening to you talk about your trauma and what you went through, I mean, the blessing is that you have a voice.
Mm.
You have a voice and you're using it and you're doing it so, so beautifully for other people. So thank you for that.
Yes. Thank you for having me so much too.
Oh, you're welcome. All right. So what is your mascot? The Bisons?
Yep.
Let's go Bisons. Yes. I'll be cheering for you from the Nashville area.
Thank you.
All right. Y'all have a great day. Thanks so much for tuning in today, guys. If you have an idea for an interview or you would like to share your own story, I would love to hear from you. Send me a message at dawn@thesoulgoals.com. If you enjoyed today's podcast, I'd love for you to leave a review and to consider following and subscribing to the show. With weekly releases, there is always another interesting story to be heard. I do hope that today's guests and their words have helped to bring some extra light to your day and encouraged you to find a deeper space of your very own soul goals. Until next time, friends, remember that everyone has a story and every story matters.